Hi, I'm Kolchak Byring, and I'm a recent computer science graduate from Oregon State University. I've also completed CodePath's Intermediate Cybersecurity course, CYB102, and I'm a cybersecurity engineer who has been working in the field for the past 2.5 years. The first question asks that I imagine that I am in a breakout room and a student asks a question for which I don't have the answer to. What would I do? The first thing I would do is ask the student some follow-up questions to kind of understand the context of their question and make sure I know what they're truly asking so I can better understand it or facilitate a discussion in the breakout room about it. So if I don't immediately know the answer, I would repeat the question or throw that question out in the breakout room and say, hey, the student asked a good question. What is everyone's thoughts on this? And as everyone is kind of having a discussion about, what the possible answers or solutions could be, I would quickly check the course portal and instructor slides to see if I could find the answer. If not during this time, I would quickly try to do an internet search and see if I can provide the student the answer. And if not, I would, say, hey, that's a really good question. Let me get back to you on that. And I would follow up later with the student either via email or Slack in that same breakout room so that everyone can see the answer and the student can get the answer that they were looking for. Um, the second prompt asks a situation where if I join a breakout room and the cameras are off and there's no real active participation, how would I encourage participation? First and foremost, I would first make sure that my own webcam is on, and I would greet everyone in the room, and I would say, hey, does anyone want to come on camera? Can everyone turn on their cameras and kind of share what you're working on, or if you have any questions about the topics that were covered today, or any questions in general about cybersecurity. And I would kind of try to get a discussion started so to involve the students so that everybody's talking and kind of facilitate that. If there's not really much feedback when attempting that, I would probably call on a student individually, like not under pressure or anything, but I would probably call them, hey, can you share, do you want to share what you're working on? Having any issues, any questions? And I would kind of try to make them feel comfortable so that they're comfortable, asking me questions or talking to their peers about things. And I would, chime in to help facilitate that conversation. Because really, I'm there to help them succeed. And I would just let them know that so they don't feel like, I have a stupid question or, I'm stuck and I'm too afraid to say anything. So I would kind of put them at ease in regards to that. The technical prompt says provide an explanation as you would if a student sought additional information. If I can explain the concept of a proxy server and its significance in cybersecurity. A proxy server is a server that sits in the middle between a client and another resource, like such as a web server. Um, and there's two types of proxy servers. One is a board proxy server, which is one that sits in between the client and the server, and it kind of handles requests that the client sends out to the internet. And a reverse proxy server is a server that sits in front of the web server and that sends or filters or handles requests made to a web server. And essentially, what a proxy server actually does is so it sits in the middle between these two devices. So let's take the example of you, the client, making a request out to the internet. So what would happen is your request would first go to the proxy server, and then the proxy server could do a number of things. The first thing it will do is it'll hide your identity from the resource that you're making the request out to. So the resource will think that the request is coming from the proxy server instead of you. And for cybersecurity, that's important because it kind of gives you some anonymity and doesn't expose your IP address. So it's not, vulnerable to attacks in case that you are reaching a malicious website. Um, what a proxy server can also do is it can act as a firewall, and it can either restrict or allow access to either certain websites or geographic locations or resources or regions that are approved or denied by the administrator who set up the proxy server. And that's really to help, you know, so that the client doesn't get themselves into trouble by visiting a malicious website. The proxy server can also, um, essentially, it has web application firewall capabilities where, um, for like a reverse proxy server, it can prevent and identify certain types of attacks like cross-site scripting and SQL injection, so that those get filtered out and that kind of malicious traffic gets dropped, so it doesn't reach the server. And also, what proxy servers can be good for, as an example of a forward-facing proxy server, is that um, it can cache material or resources on there that are frequently visited by, I guess, users of your organization. So if everybody kind of frequently goes to a website, it can cache those resources so that you get a faster response. And that also helps in, saving resources and kind of uh, prevents or uh, makes it so that the clients don't have a need to go out to the actual internet and expose themselves, you know, and create some kind of problem that way. Um, the proxy server also is beneficial because when it's a reverse proxy, it can also act like a load balancer by distributing the incoming load to the various backend resources. And that's important because if there was only one server or the traffic was only going to one server from the reverse proxy, it can get overwhelmed and taken down, and that could be from something intentional like a DDoS event, or it could be just because that website or that web server there was a sale and it got a flood of users. So, in a security sense, that also ensures availability. So the proxy server can do many of these functions, which kind of facilitate good security practices, and it kind of adds an extra layer of security so that either the web server or the client is not exposed to additional attacks. So these questions were in regards to the CYB101 course, and I hope you enjoyed them.